Welcome to the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy aircraft carrier brief. Today we're going to be talking about the 4 total aircraft carriers that China has and is developing. They have a total of 3 right now. 2 are fully committed and operational, have been for years. The third one is still going through sea trials. That is the Fujian. And that is probably the most technologically leaped aircraft carrier in their Navy. Much more capable than Type 1, Type 2 that we'll get into today. And there's also a 4th generation, a Type 4 aircraft carrier that is in development. It is very early days on that one. We don't know a lot, but we'll bring you what we have today. So we're going to go over all 4 of these projects today in detail with what we know. So China's first aircraft carrier is the Liaoning, and that is called a Type 1. Type 1 aircraft carrier. It is basically the second, or it's Hull 2, of the Russian Kuznetsov class that was built in Ukraine. And then it was bought by China in 2001, commissioned in 2012, and has essentially been a training platform for how to conduct air operations at sea for both the ship and its crew and the air wings and the staff that come with them. Now, China has promoted this as a fully operational carrier, which technically it is. It is operational. It can go to sea. It may need to refuel every 5 or 6 days, but as long as it's got a tanker with it, it can stay at sea for an extended period of time. And it does do naval drills regularly. The Liaoning Type 1, the first of the aircraft carriers. The second aircraft carrier, Type 2, is the Shandong. Now, the Shandong is a Chinese-built variant of the Kuznetsov class. And there are some differences there that we're going to talk about, important differences. The Shandong Type 2 is purpose-built to be just an aircraft carrier, nothing else. And so because they had that focus, they were able to get a little more capability out of it, but not much, just a little bit. It is the Type 3, the Fujian aircraft carrier, that China completely designed and built from the ground up as a modern aircraft carrier, clearly drawing inspiration from the American aircraft carrier, American Navy. And that capability, the Fujian capability, is leaps and bounds above anything the Type 1 and Type 2 have. It is a significant development, and it is still in sea trials, but we do expect her to enter service probably in 2026. That's what we're thinking at this time, because she clearly has problems, but the problems are not insurmountable. She will be an operational carrier very soon, and maybe by the time you hear this, if you're listening to this at some point in the future, she may already be operational. So the Type 4 aircraft carrier meets the definition of the United States Navy definition of a super carrier. The People's Liberation Army Navy is building a full-scale, nearly estimated 100,000-ton nuclear-powered EMAL, which is the catapult, electrical magnetic catapult, and capture system. It is essentially a Chinese version of the Gerald R. Ford class, our newest aircraft carrier. They have drawn heavily from their experience of building and designing the Type 3 and scaled it immensely to 100,000 tons estimated. We say estimated because she just started construction. Based on the keel size, clearly going to be much larger in length than the one you're looking at here on the screen if you're watching the video. You're looking at the Type 3, by the way, if you're watching the video. And so this one's going to be a lot bigger. And the big thing is Type 4 is going to be their first nuclear-powered one. Type 1, 2, and 3 are all conventionally powered. And that's really the problem with the aircraft carriers is they've gotten so big. You know, we're talking for the Type 1, the Liaoning is 58,000 tons estimated. Type 2 comes in just under 70,000 tons, and it's being pushed by diesel engines. That is an enormous amount of fuel. The Type 3, even larger, has a huge electrical load because while it is conventionally powered, it has an electrical motor for the propulsion and for the catapult system. The email system is electric, so it has enormous electrical load on those engines. And that comes in at like approximately 85,000 tons. Some Chinese sources push it higher. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's 85 is going to be my top end for the weight of this. The point is, as long as it doesn't have a nuclear reactor pushing it along, it's going to burn through fuel so fast, and it does. We saw this in sea trials, that it needs to refuel often. So while it can, go on long transits, all three of these could, type 1, type 2, type 3. They don't break down as often as, say, the Russian Kuznetsov does or did. These are a lot more reliable, but they need fuel. They're very thirsty ships. And the Type 4, being nuclear powered, relieves a lot of that demand. They still need fuel for hotel loads and diesel generation that happens on board even nuclear powered vessels in the future. The Type 4 I'm talking about. They also need fuel for the air wing, of course. The planes fly on jet fuel, and they have oil and stuff for their engines. So they'll still be loading fuel oil and avgas and stuff like that for even their nuclear powered aircraft carriers, Type 4. Now, the Type 1, Type 2, the Type 1 can carry, we've seen 24 planes on her. The Type 2 can get up to maybe 30 aircraft total. She can have more helicopters, and we'll go over these numbers. The Type 3, with its larger deck space and 2 elevators supporting the flight deck, can carry 40 jets. 40 jets. That is a fully capable air wing. You've got, you got aviation cap, you've got electronic warfare planes. You could, support other multi-role planes, and that's probably what they're going to do with the Type 3. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm projecting into the future as to what we expect the role of the Fujian to be going forward. All right, so let's start breaking these down. Let's talk about the weapon systems. These ships can defend themselves from air attack, drone attack, cruise missile attack, with numerous surface-to-air missile locations all around the ship, and close-in weapon systems, which are the Type 1130s. And those are the 11-barreled 30-millimeter Gatling gun-style point defense systems. And you can see them scattered all over the flight deck here, around the outside. That's the big island there in the middle, very fat. Now, something I want you to pay attention to, and bring my cursor on the screen, is this yellow line right here. We're going to talk about 2 different launch positions on the Type 1 and Type 2, and the Type 3 for that matter. But this yellow line is very important. This yellow line's on the Type 1 and the Type 2, and this is after the full launch run up the ski jump. These 2 yellow lines forward of the island are the forward or half launch positions. And the run-up distance affects the amount of weight the planes can take off with. So that's very important. We're going to go over weights a lot today for the J-15 fighter, or a JF-15 fighter. All right, let's talk about Type 1 carrier and the Type 2. Talk about some of the radars that this one has. This has the Type 382 top plate radar. The NATO name for the Russian radar top plate is this is a Chinese version, Type 382 long range air search radar. The Type 366, which is that dome below it, is a surface search radar, is also the ECM. Yeah. So while it's transmitting inside that dome, we can also listen for radar. And below that, it is a flat plate radar, but this is the early version we're looking at, is the Type 346 ASA. That's active electronic scanned array radar. And that is the first version, or the early version, of their most advanced shipborne ASA radar. Here's the Shandong. This is the Type 2, their second aircraft carrier. I'm going to start going over the differences between Type 1 and Type 2. Remember, Type 1 is essentially the Kuznetsov. Let's think of it as that. It's not. There's some differences, but if we thought of it as baseline Kuznetsov, Shandong is modified Kuznetsov. So the island is significantly different on the Shandong than on the Type 1. It is actually smaller in footprint, but taller by one deck, giving it an extra deck for the air boss and the management, flight deck management crew to run things. So smaller in footprint, greater in capability in terms of sensors and height, but also has an extra deck for people. She does displace approximately 70,000 tons. There's a little bit of difference in the different sources we have on that. Just know that she's very heavy and being pushed around by diesel engines, burning up tons and tons of diesel fuel every hour. Her advanced 346 S-band radar is an improved variant on that. And we're going to go over this radar in detail. Just know that this is an improved facing radar from the Type 1. It is still the same radar though, just different version. The air wing is a little bit larger. They can have 8 additional aircraft. Those can be helicopters. If it's just jets, because of the size difference, I think it can be a little bit less, like 4 or 6 aircraft additional. But if you just want to group aircraft, helicopters, and jets all in the same category, they can have 8 more than the Type 1 Liaoning can have. All right, so the Shandong has an internal arrangement that's different, and this is one of the big things. So the Kuznetsov for the Russian Navy, which is the model for Type 1, had the shipwreck missiles in the deck in vertically launched tubes, literally on the flight deck. Yeah. And that took up some flight deck space. Now, whenever China bought the Type 1 Liaoning from Ukraine, those missiles had been removed. It was purely an aircraft carrier, and it still is. But there is superstructure beneath the flight deck that supported those missile tubes and are load-bearing frames. Because they're load-bearing or key frames, those could not be removed. So there is structure below the deck that you can't see because it's hidden, that takes up hangar space inside the aircraft carrier itself, which is critical for storing the aircraft. This is one of the major reasons why you get 8 more aircraft on the Shandong, the Type 2, than you do on the Type 1, is because of the load-bearing frames, the design, the actual naval architecture of the inside of the ship is different in the Type 2. They were able, because they designed this one in China and built it in China, they were able to get rid of a lot of those key frames and make more room in the hangar spaces for more aircraft. You can't see it. It's there though, folks, and it makes a big difference. It's 8 planes or 8 aircraft difference. So again, Shandong is limited to 6 days at sea before refueling because she's heavy and conventional. That's a huge liability in modern warfare if you have places to go. China right now has never deployed their carriers far from home. I think the farthest they've ever gone is near Guam, which is not exactly a day trip. That is a lot of steaming, but it's not global, right? So endurance continues to be an issue for both the airplanes, which we'll get to, and this ship. So she did do back-to-back sea trials in 2019. That's kind of key. And the ability to turn a ship around from going to sea for, a week or more, and then come into port, resupply quickly, and then go right back out again is kind of big. In the U.S. Navy, we call that surging or a surge deployment. They actually practiced that during their sea trials, which I thought was impressive. So here we have a visual comparison of the two. What I want you to look at really here is the island. Notice how the island on the Shandong, the left, is much taller, thinner, smaller footprint, and just know that it's more capable. It has that additional deck for more people operating inside the island is nice. But it also allows for more deck space by approximately 10% more deck space, which is significant for moving airplanes around to and from launch positions. All right, so here is a very, kind of a cropped Chinese TV example of the two different islands. The big thing here that they're highlighting is the difference in radars. It is the Type 346 radar. The Type 2, the Shandong, has the 346 Alpha, which is just an upgraded variant of it. And it talks about how changing the footprint of the island gives more deck space, which means more aircraft capacity. And it does, like I said, makes a difference. Let's move on to the Type 3. This is the most recent operating, even though it's in sea trials, aircraft carrier in the PLAN. The Fujian is their first domestically designed and built aircraft carrier. This does not rely on the Kuznetsov design whatsoever. It is the largest conventionally powered warship in the world at 80,000 tons, which is incredible that you're pushing that around with diesel engines. This thing should be pluming black smoke like you wouldn't believe. That's what I would expect. She is 316 meters long, 75 meters beam at its widest point, and drafts approximately 13 meters. It is catabar, which means it's catapult assisted takeoff. That's CATO. And then bar is the barrier arresting system. That's how they capture the planes back. So the main feature here is that it has 3 of its emails. That's electromagnetic aircraft launch system catapults, and it does have 4 arrestor wires. You can see that very clearly on this photo if you look closely at it. And she operates the Type 346 Bravo Dragon fixed-faced ASA radar. So that's the next evolution up. Each one of these aircraft carriers is a generational leap in terms of radar capability, and certainly going from Type 2 to Type 3, air wing capability. Because she can house and operate up to 60 aircraft, which is the J-15 fighters and the KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft can take off and land here. That's something that the emails catapult adds, is they can launch heavier loads than the ski jump Type 1, Type 2 style of launch pads can launch. And she's currently in sea trials at this time. And we'll see when she becomes operational. Here is a great breakdown of her defense systems. The same kind of surface-to-air missiles, the HHQ-10 and the Type 1130 Sea Whiz are sprinkled throughout the port and starboard sides all around the deck, defending the ship from low-flying cruise missile drone attack and whatnot. And you can see the emails, electromagnetical air launch systems there. There's 3 of them on this ship. Here's a fantastic photo our writer put together for us. These are the 3 ships side by side. All the way on the left, you have the Liaoning, and in the middle, you have the Shandong. And on the right, you have the Type 3 Fujian. And you can see the one on the right, clearly much bigger than the first 2, and a lot more aircraft subsequently. Great photo. All right, so the Chinese aircraft carriers, the first 2 were built in Dalian shipyard. The third one was built in Jiangnan. And the keel laying, because it happened technically in Ukraine for Liaoning, was 1985, but she was commissioned in Dalian shipyard in 2012. She had to be towed. If you're wondering how that happened, they towed the ship from the Black Sea all the way around to China. Yeah, that was quite the operation, quite the undertaking. That happened in somewhere between 2001 and 2012. Anyway, so they built the Shandong in 2015 with lots of modifications like the ones I talked about. Commissioned her in 2019, and then the Fujian is launched in 2022. She is commissioned. They commissioned her in 2024, but she's still going through sea trials. So I don't know if they're going to do another ceremony for her. We're marking it down here as just in sea trials because we don't know how long that's going to go on. Just for context, our Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier was commissioned, I want to say in 2017, and then went on to do 5 years of sea trials. Now, we don't expect China to do 5 years of sea trials, but these are the types of shakedowns that new systems like this take. Even though these are all aircraft carriers, I would classify the Fujian clearly by itself because it has a completely different propulsion plant. Completely different. All right, let's move on to the carriers by the numbers. Again, we're summarizing numbers of carriers here. So overall, 8 boilers, 4 turbines, 4 shafts. That's universal. The length is for T1. Oh, T1 is going to be Type 1, T2 is Type 2, and so forth. So the T1, T2 is 306 meters beam. T3 is 315 meters. We don't know T4 yet. That's the length rather. The beam is 70 meters, and for T3 it's 75 meters. Displacement goes up with every haul from 58,000 tons to 70,000 tons on the Shandong, and then finally 80,000 tons estimated for the for Fujian. The crews vary widely. We're going to go with 1960 per ship, and then the aircraft and air wing bring on a lot of new, mechanics, pilots, staff, of course, which is approximately an additional 700 people. All the ships at their best speed can get close to 30 knots. I'd say 26 for Liaoning and then 30 knots for Fujian. The air power is 24 assets for T1, up to 36 assets if we're really rounding up and have a lot of helicopters for the Shandong. And then for the T3 for Fujian, 58 to 60, including airborne early warning radar planes. And that's big because it gives them a huge capability, not relying on land-based long-range AEW planes. So, and they can also bring on, of course, electronic warfare planes with that. But the J-15 and this is different, a new plane called J-35 is coming, can operate off the Fujian. They have 3 HHQ-10 18-cell launchers. That's the short-range surface-to-air missile defense systems. And then they have 3 each 1130 CWIS systems. The T3 is fitted with a 4th one, but you could pretty much match. If you see a surface-to-air missile launcher, very close to it is going to be a CWIS 11-barrel 30 caliber Gatling gun, both defending the ship from that same position. She does have RBUs, which is interesting. This is the rocket bomb unit's anti-submarine weapon for that. I believe that's on Liaoning. The Type 382 air search radars, the early air search, they all have some version of the ASA radar, but that air search is top plate. Remember, it's a Russian radar. China did change it. It is modified, but it's still based on Russia's top plate radar. And then the Type 366 surface search radar is that dome. T1, T2 also acts as their ESM rather. And then the Type 726 decoy launching system, that is chaff flare combos. I believe they can also launch torpedo decoys out of it now. And the T1, T2 is a short range or short takeoff and barrier arrested recovery system called stow bar. Stow bar means it's got a ski jump ramp on the bow. T3 uses the catapult. So it's Cato bar. And those cats are electromagnetically powered. They don't use steam. They use electricity, just like the new Gerald R. Ford does. All right, so here's the Type 382 radar manufactured by Nanjing Marine Radar Institute. They're the people that modified the top plate radar into what this is. It is more capable. It operates in the 4 to 6 gigahertz band. Our NATO name for the Chinese variant is called Rice Screen, and it has a range of 250 kilometers. Very good. It's right there at the top of the island. Here's the Type 346 ASA radar. Again, Nanjing Research Institute has built and developed this 3D multifunction radar called Dragon Eye. It's utilized by Liaoning 2 destroyers and Liu Yang, and then Liaoning aircraft carrier as well has it. Just know that this, like our aircraft carriers, the Gerald R. Ford uses a version of the new Spy 6 radar that is also on the frigate class that we're building. And some of the new Aegis destroyers have the new Spy 6 because it's smaller, lighter weight and all that. And obviously with an aircraft carrier, you can put more elements on it. Well, they do something very similar here in that they have this Dragon Eye, and then they can put it, a lighter version on their destroyers, and then this version on their aircraft carriers as well. Operates in the 2 to 8 version. 2 to 8 gigahertz frequencies, and that's for air and surface search. And then the higher frequencies are for missile and mid-course guidance correction if they need to do that. It has that capability. So the range, like I said, is 300 kilometers sector scan, and then 150 kilometers search mode. Sector scan is when you don't do like a 360. You want to focus all of your energy into a quadrant, and the size of those quadrants change. But just know that if you're doing sector scan, you're not doing a full 360 search. Here is the Type 346 Bravo ASA radar. Notice how this is visibly different. The face is flat. So that's how you can visually tell these differences. Plus, it's going to be on the new Fujian aircraft carrier. That's a big clue as to what this is. This is a dual band active electronically scanned array. It's a 3D multifunction radar. It's more advanced than the previous versions, but it still operates in the same frequency band of 2 to 8 gigahertz. Does the air search and the surface search, and can go out to 400 kilometers. Multi-mode, of course, sector scan, 3D scan, 360 scan, can do all that. And this I also see in 2020 with the Fujian. Here's a side-by-side comparison. You can clearly see the older version has a bulbous or dome shape, a curve to it. And then it gets flatter and smaller as it goes on. Here's the HHQ-10 Point Defense Surface-to-Air Missile. This is a rapid-fire, short-range Mach 2 surface-to-air missile designed for self-defense against drones and low-flying aircraft and cruise missiles. And it's a very accurate missile. It usually hits what it is aiming at. And just know that it's not used offensively. It's used to shoot down any kind of incoming weapon, or should a plane get too close, this would be employed against it. Its max range really is only about 9 kilometers, and that's against a harpoon. You get faster missiles, anything supersonic, and you're looking at shorter range, like 6 kilometers. And what that demonstrates is the time to lock and then get out to the target. You could do that a lot earlier with a slower moving target coming in at you than one that's moving at supersonic speeds. So that's where that difference comes in. The Type 1130 Sea Whiz. This is a pretty insane weapon in that it has 11 barrels that spin hyper fast. Each barrel, as it goes in front of the chamber, loads around and puts a round down range. And it does approximately 10,000 rounds per minute, approximately, at its full capacity. It's just insane how much lead this thing can throw down range. And the muzzle velocity there, which is what I was reading when I said that, is between 1,000 and 1,100 meters per second. That gets into some very specific things for ballistic nerds. But just know that this is a fat 30 millimeter round, and it's throwing thousands of them a minute down range. It's really incredible thing to watch and listen to. It sounds like tearing fabric. It sounds a little bit like the A10 gun. It's not nearly, I don't think, as powerful, but it certainly is a big round like the A10 gun has. And they've got 3 of these on Type 1, Type 2, and 4 of them on the Type 3. Very good system. Here's the Type 726 decoy launcher. This shoots the countermeasures for chaff flare combos, smoke. It also shoots decoys and submarine decoys. Like we have a photo here of a great active torpedo decoy. I recognize this thing. I've seen this before. This thing will go in the water and begin attracting a torpedo by mimicking a target. Yeah. And not just like in broadband noise, like whenever your torpedo pings, it does so at a very specific pulse type. This decoy mimics that pulse type as if it's a return. So to confuse the torpedo into thinking that it's a target. And the torpedo will go, if it's successful in decoying the torpedo will go to this decoy in the water instead of the ship, pass by it, not explode. That's not how it works. But the torpedo will realize it has missed, and it will go into reattack, which means it has to reset its brain and look again. And the time it takes to do that, the ship's getting away, the torpedo's running out of fuel, and the decoy's doing its job being a decoy. That's how that works. But like I said, it also does chaff flare. I'm pretty sure they do the inflatable waterline decoys as well, but I haven't seen that yet. But I would expect them to have that capability at this point. Here's the emails catapult system. This thing is nuts. Basically, straight up stolen from the United States. Yeah, the Type 3 is fitted with the emails catapult system. It is a huge storage capacitor, multiple capacitors that just get stored up with lots and lots of energy, electrical energy, and then it's released. And it's released very smoothly as to, gently, or as gently as you can, catapult a J-15 aircraft off the deck. And it's very good. It's very reliable. It's low maintenance because it's all, there's no moving parts other than the shuttle. The shuttle that the landing front gear locks onto, of course, moves to move the plane itself, but there's no chains, there's no steam, pistons below the deck. It's all electrical mechanical, and it's really quite impressive. And this is probably something that they're still working the kinks out of. I would not expect anyone, because the United States didn't do it either, to have their emails working at full capacity right away. So this could be one of the things that they're still trying to work the bugs out of during their ongoing sea trials. Still very impressive technology. The fact that they can pull, tens of thousands of pounds over a short speed or a short distance to enough speed to create lift is impressive. All right, so here's the J-15, also called the Flying Shark, manufactured by Shenyang Shipyard Industry Group. I said shipyard, I meant Aircraft Industry Group. It's a derivative of the Su-33 and development of the J-11 Bravo. So J-11 Bravo is the old plane. The Su-33 certainly had influence on this plane, but I don't think China would admit that. But just know that those are the two planes that they took inspiration from to make this one. Its maiden flight was in 2009, but its first carrier test was in 2012. There is a two-seat version of this plane called the J-15S. There's a lot of problems with this. So the plane itself, not that bad. The engines had a terrible start in terms of endurance. These engines were literally disintegrating in air in flight for many years. I believe now in 2025, when I'm recording this, they have greatly resolved those issues. The engineering and the construction of these jet engines certainly is better. I don't know that it's fixed, but I know that it's better. It's a twin engine plane. Landing on one engine was very common because the other engine had just blown up, during the flight. We saw that over and over again, but not recently. That's key. Not recently. We haven't seen that. So this plane can do Mach 2.4 very fast. It burns an enormous amount of fuel at that point. So the range is like nothing, but it can go fast for a little bit. But it has a lot of weapon hardpoints. Look at this. It's got 12 weapon hardpoints, and it can carry anti-ship missiles, anti-air missiles, short, medium range missiles. And it's really quite impressive, the number of systems this plane has. Its biggest deficiency, in my opinion, is the fact that it is taking off from a ski jump style aircraft carrier until it gets onto the Fujian, because that really makes a difference as to how much weight you can put on this plane. And when I say weight, I'm talking about fuel and weapons. You can't have both. If you want more fuel, you got to take less weapons. And if you want more weapons, you got to take less fuel if you're operating from the Type 1 and Type 2. Here's the Type 35. This is what's coming. This is the future. This was unveiled at the 2024 Air Show. The J-35 Alpha is out there. This is created by the same people that made the J-15. This is a 5th generation fighter. There you can see the FC-31 test aircraft taken off, and clearly inspired by a combination of the J-35 or the F-35 the Americans have, and a little bit of the F-22 influence. I don't know if that's just cosmetic or if it's practical. But I see a little bit of F-22 in that design, especially with the dual engines and the twin tails there in the back. So the J-35A is the Air Force version. The J-35 with no letter is the shipborne version. They can go 1.8 Mach, and combat radius is 1,200 kilometers. That's if it's got more gas than weapons. It does shoot the PL-9 short range air-to-air missile, PL-10, PL-12 or medium range. Can shoot the PL-15 long range air-to-air missile, which is really quite impressive. That's a very long range. Think of the extended range AMRAAM. That's what the PL-15 is like. The YJ-83K and 91 are anti-ship missiles. Both very good heavy missiles that will rip a small ship apart and greatly damage anything else it hits bigger than a frigate. The KD-88 air-to-ground missile and the LD-10 ARM missile. So the J-35, as of 2025, is not operational in the Navy yet. So we have IOC it as unknown, even though they did demonstrate it. They do have a flying model of it. And so they're clearly building it, but there's no indication yet as to when they go into full production. Here's the KJ-600. This thing is, a very fuel efficient, old school style, propeller driven, airborne early warning radar, which is very similar to the E2. So, those are not negatives. Just know that she's designed to get into the air and then stay aloft as long as possible with that radar turning and burning, so that they have some long range over the horizon, air and surface capability, radar detection. This is going to be deployed on the Fujian because it does need a catapult to get enough energy moving under the wings to cause lift. She cannot take off from the Type 1, Type 2. She will go in the water as soon as she leaves the ski jump if she does that. So they don't even put her on those two. She will be on the Fujian and eventually, whenever the Type 4 comes out, on that one as well. All right, here's the Z-20F helicopter manufactured by Avic. This is the ASW variant that you see here on your screen. She looks a lot like the Navy Seahawk. She essentially is a Chinese copy of it, but there are some differences. So China will, of course, never admit to copying anything, but I think the resemblance speaks for itself in these photos. She does have the underbelly bubble for observation. She can do sonar buoys, of course, and carry anti-submarine weapons like the lightweight torpedoes. And she has very similar performance stats to the American Seahawk in terms of 30 nautical mile range, cruise speed 160 knots, and so forth. Very, very good helicopter. No problems here. The YJ-18, this is an old school an improved version of the Z8 helicopter. This is what the Type 1 and Type 2 would employ, those aircraft carriers, as their airborne early warning radar. You can see the top photo has this helicopter with this barrel under it. That's a radar. And so they'll take this helicopter, they'll launch it, it'll go up in the air, and it will look for, as far as it can see, Chinese sources say 900 kilometers. Sure. Whatever. It's going to be old. It's already out of date. But this was the only way that they could get aviation early warning radar up off the deck of the aircraft carriers before the Fujian came along in 2024. This IOC'd in 2018. It's a good workaround for that limitation. I'll give them that. Other than that, it's not that useful. All right, here's the Harbin Z9 Charlie helicopter. If you're been a longtime member of this channel, you know this helicopter very well. This one's manufactured by Harbin. It can carry 1 or 2 pilots. You could pilot this by yourself if you wanted to. It has a 900-pound payload. Similar cruise speeds to other helicopters at 160 miles per hour cruise, 190 mile per hour max speed. But here's what's great about this. This thing is a Swiss Army knife of helicopters. She has multiple configurations. So you could make it an ASW, which gives you dipping sonar and 2 YU-7 torpedoes. Or you could go with land attack and put on some TV-guided C-701 anti-ship missiles for anti-missile or anti-ship attack as well. She has the KLC-11 J-band surface search radar on board and, like I said, dipping sonar. She can also shoot the TY-90 very short range infrared guided air-to-air missile. So if you want this thing to be a hunter-killer against drones, be an example, you can employ this helicopter against drones at very short range. You'd almost need a cooperative target at that point, a non-maneuvering target, in my opinion, but it could be done. Note that it can't do all these things at once. You got to pick a lane. You got to put torpedoes on it or the anti-ship missiles. You can't have both. But it's a very versatile helicopter. This one's the most practical helicopter that they have. The only thing that this helicopter doesn't have that the Z-18 does is that long-range radar. It doesn't have that. So each helicopter is purpose-built, and this one has multi-role. All right, final thoughts. Wow. So the PLAN, People's Liberation Army Navy, is coming a long way very fast. Every time they build a new ship, it is a generational leap. Whether it's a destroyer, those Liuyang destroyers, the difference between between Liuyang 1, 2, and 3 are significant. The same goes with the aircraft carriers that we've talked about here today. The Liuyang Type 1, basically the Kuznetsov without the missiles under the deck, and some limitations. Training boat. Type 2, Shandong. China designed a better infrastructure for more hangar space and a smaller island, gave it a better radar. So that is a generational leap too. But the power plant essentially is the same as the Type 1. Not great. More reliable than whatever Russia had. They did change it. That's important. It's not the same as Russia. This is a Chinese power plant, and it's very reliable compared to the Kuznetsov that fails all the time. The Type 3, the Fujian, a significant leap in capability. In deck space, air wing complement is up to 60 aircraft now. We have catapults. We have a lot of diesel engines generating a lot of electricity that then launch aircraft off the deck, support the hotel loads, and push the ship through the water all at the same time. So the first two aircraft carriers, very limited in my opinion. The big thing was weight. I don't think I hit on this enough, so I'm going to talk about weight for a second with the airplanes. So with the J-15, you could, I believe the max launch weight is somewhere in the vicinity of 35,000, I'll say kilograms. The plane itself is, somewhere in the 20s. It's like 21,000 kilograms. And then you put 9,000 kilograms of fuel in it. You're getting to like 28 out of your max 35. I'm using ballpark figures here for you folks because their numbers aren't right in front of me. Which leaves you like 6,000 pounds for bombs. Now you could put 6,000 pounds of bombs on it, right? But in order to take off from the Liuyang and the Shandong, if you wanted to carry more than, say, 6,000 pounds of weapons, you had to take less fuel. That was the only option, which greatly reduced the endurance, the time in the air, for each plane. So not only do you have 24 planes on Liuyang, 30 planes, we'll say, on Shandong, they can't stay in the air very long. And the pilots are not very good at landing on an aircraft carrier. So you need to reserve a lot of fuel in case they need to make 2, maybe 3, and we've even seen 4 attempts at landing before they're diverted to a land base. Something that is very true, and this happens in all navies, but we're talking about China, is that whenever they're operating, they're never far enough away from a land-based airfield that the airplanes, the J-15, can't divert and land to if they can't trap. Because the pilots are still getting better at landing on an aircraft carrier, which is going to be one of the most difficult things any pilot ever has done. It's not simple. And so after so many attempts, whenever your fuel gets below a certain rate, you have to make a decision. Do you commit to the land-based divert, or do you, drop weapons so you can stay in the air longer, which they always divert to a land field. Now, the J-35 is going to add significant power to the air wing. Okay. It's going to be a 5th generation fighter. It's got long range air-to-air missiles and can also shoot the other missiles that the J-15 shoots, anti-ship missiles and so forth. So that's going to be a significant improvement coming up. Just know that the catapult system fixes a lot of that weight problem with the J-15. And J-35, whenever that's online, is going to be even better. So the KJ-600, whenever it's airborne over the Fujian, in combination with that Dragon Eye radar, is going to give very good radar picture and fidelity with practically no blind spots to speak of, out for a very long range. So the KJ-600 is a high-value aircraft that can land on the aircraft carrier and take off again. And that's going to be something that, our men and women are going to be watching at sea whenever we want to see what kind of endurance it has, and also see if it has to divert to land-based airfields for landing. Can they land the KJ-600 on the Fujian? Physically, it's capable of landing. Just doing it's going to be quite an achievement for the pilot. Anyway, and I want to caveat this whole lecture in that we have very few reliable sources. We have lots of sources that are not accurate. So be very careful about what you read on the internet about the capabilities of these platforms. Everything is wrong. Very few things are true. And we've done our best to filter out what's accurate and what we believe is not accurate in this lecture. So I want to thank you all for your patience and allowing us the extra time to make this lecture as good as it is now. And we're going to continue moving forward whenever the Type 4 is launched. And we get some information on it and some photos. We will definitely go over that, but that could be a couple years from now. Okay. And until then, thanks Patreons and YouTube subscribers. You guys are the best. We'll see you guys next time.